Good morning, Metalheads Unit. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at a new collaborative record from Keiji Haino and Sumac, entitled, even for just the briefest moment, Keep Charging This Expiation plug-in to making it slightly better. God damn, it was only 2 weeks ago that I gave Serpent of Gnosis shit for having such a super long album title that I couldn't fit in my video, and I guess now I have to retract that statement because in comes Sumac and Keiji, however I pronounce that name, just like, fuck it, we can beat that. We can take you on. We fucking got you. Square up, bitch. This is actually the second collaborative album that these two have done together. I'm not super familiar with Keiji Haino's work, but upon doing some research, I discovered that this gentleman may in fact be the busiest musician of all time. His discography on Wikipedia is absolutely insane. Mostly stuff that has been released over in Japan. I'm not really familiar with a lot of the projects that he's been a part of, but according to this, he's also worked with a couple semi-large names. He's worked with Boris, he's worked with Stephen O'Malley, he's worked with John Zorn, he's worked with Merzbow. Those are all super talented and interesting artists and bands, so you know, that's cool. Sumac, on the other hand, I am a little bit familiar with. I didn't review it here on the Metal Meltdown, but I did listen to their last studio album, Love in Shadow, and I really enjoyed it. A super dense, super exciting and invigorating experimental album with lots of different soundscapes and concepts and textures. It was weird and dark and powerful, and in retrospect, maybe even one of my favorite albums from last year. And looking back, I'm actually disappointed that I didn't really take any time to look at it. I also know that this band features Aaron Turner of Old Man Gloom and the band Isis, so, you know, another super talented dude. Hell yeah. There you go. For all those reasons, I was already quite curious to check out this album, but what really drew me in, what really caught my attention, was learning that the entire album is completely improvised. That is really interesting. Dangerous, to an extent, but still very interesting. Improv is not something that any musician simply pulls out of their ass. Improv is a tool. It is a skill. It is something that only the best musicians use, and even the best musicians don't use it all the fucking time. Take, for instance, the most recent Baroness record, which finally saw the band doing a lot of improv, but I would still say that it's really only coming down to about 40 to 50%. Hell, even that might be a little bit generous now that I say that out loud. I think when most of us think of improv, we really think of jazz musicians, but that's completely different. That's a completely different genre with different rules and different expectations. This is like some weird experimental post-metal noise rock bullshit. It's a completely different field. So again, very interesting. Dangerous, but very interesting nonetheless. Unfortunately, this all fell apart really quickly for me. The band certainly has good intentions. They're clearly trying to create a lot of interesting soundscapes and passages on this record, but it inherently lacks any kind of structure. There's no bare bones of any song here. They quite literally just kind of do stuff and make noises and then try and assemble something out of it. The album has such disdain for even the most basic blueprint that songs go on forever and ever. There's one song on here that wraps up at 29 minutes and 57 seconds long. One track. The most recent Panzerfaust record, the first chapter in a 4-part series, wasn't even that fucking long, okay? That's fucking crazy. One track at 29 minutes. And that's without even mentioning another track that wraps up at 15 minutes and another track that wraps up at just over 19 minutes. The band has completely lost the ability to edit their own material. As a result, the album is immediately off-putting and jarring and weird. It constantly feels like we're building up to stuff, but there's never an unleash. There's never a hook, a really cathartic passage. The album just kind of dawdles along. There's no care for song titles. There's no care for any kind of lyrics. The closest thing we get from Keiji Haino is basically him screaming into a microphone like a rabid Japanese dog. The album can't even really communicate any kind of concept or mood, which doesn't sound important until you realize that this is a mostly instrumental affair. Okay, compare that to the most recent Plotkin record, which was able to communicate grief and loss and heartbreak just through their instrumental work. It was always clear what was happening on that record. It was always clear what we were building up to. Here, not so much. I mean, even just looking at the album titles, I can't tell what the fuck is going to happen. Like this first track here, interior, 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 space, disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. What the fuck does that mean? There are no layers, there are no patterns, there's nothing interwoven, nothing is communicated, nothing is even really played. Again, it really does sound like a jazz rock band just kind of warming up right before the show. Hey, Bill, let's go through those scales. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, how's your flute part going? Awesome, great job, everyone. Show starts in 5 minutes. And even if you did have all of those things present, it would still be inherently difficult to follow when the next 3 tracks range from 15 minutes long to 30 minutes long. There's not even like an indicator to tell you what part of the song you're even in. You know, there's nothing really there to signify that you've moved into a different segment or passage, because everything, as weird as it is, still weirdly bleeds together into one jumbled, noisy, improv mess. The killer is, I think that there's a lot of good stuff still within this record. There are some passages here and there that I do like. For one, I really like the flutes in the opening track. I really like some of the noisier, more metallic guitar-driven passages that you hear in later tracks as well, in later movements, I should say. Not tracks, because there's literally 4 tracks. I like how anxious everything feels, and I like how inherently unpredictable the album is, and I like how good the sound mix is. It's a really fucking good sound mix. It feels like you're in the room with the band watching them perform. But unfortunately, none of those things matter when you don't have any fucking music, and this album doesn't have any music. It lacks basic editing skills, it lacks basic structure, it lacks a concept, a theme, it lacks melodies, it lacks anything that I could sink my teeth into. It really is 60 minutes of random noise. This is artsy music that exists for the sake of being artsy. It's pretentious and cluttered, and I think even the most experienced fan of progressive and experimental music would have a difficult time with this. Take, for instance, Blaine Smith on Banger TV, who admitted that this inherently is something that he should like. This is something that should be up his alley. And yet he struggled to really find things that he enjoyed about this album, and ultimately gave it a 2 out of 5. I'll personally go a little bit lower myself. I'll go with a 1.5 out of 5, but I think me and him still pretty much see eye to eye on this thing. It is such a colossal, pretentious waste. I think what makes this album all the more troubling is that you know that these guys are talented. You know that they are capable of making a good record. For fuck's sakes, they've done it before. This should not be that difficult. But clearly the burden of improvising an entire record is way too much for them. They're just clearly not capable of it. Again, maybe if you are super into like super artistic and experimental stuff, maybe this will do the trick for you. Maybe you'll find all kinds of stuff that me and Blaine and many others weren't able to find. And good on you if that's the case. I won't knock you. Swear to God, I won't. I mean, Jesus, I wasn't exactly expecting this to be a super accessible radio rock album. These are 2 extremely weird artists with extremely weird discographies. But I was expecting something a lot more structured, a lot more engaging, a lot more emotional, and just a lot better overall. I'm not opposed to improv in music, but this is proof of what I said earlier. It is a tool. It is a skill. No normal musician should just pull this out of their ass unless they know exactly what they're doing. And maybe these guys knew what they were doing on previous records, but for whatever reason, the planets just don't align here. 1.5 out of 5, it's a bad record. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe to get updates on Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.